Oh, sorry about that. All right. Hello, everybody. You see, you got a couple different faces here. Patrick is, he may or may not join us later tonight. Benjamin is on the road doing a Texas distillery tour. We have Kevin Rose with us once again, and we're welcoming Stephen Beam and Stephen Fante from Limestone Branch. Big thing to start off with is one, what's everyone on the show drinking? And people in the chat, make sure you let us know what you're having tonight. I'll start with the Steves. What are you guys having?
So I have a minor case. It's my go-to in warm weather. Light whiskey, kind of fruity. And I always drink everything neat. And it's just a nice whiskey when it's warm outside.
Yeah. And I have a 115 proof single barrel that I chose out of our tastings. And it's on a block of ice. And that ice is melting quickly.
Yeah, I never understood that, but Fonte likes the ice.
There's nothing wrong with that. What about you, Kevin?
I have a Yellowstone single barrel that I believe this is one I picked up at the distillery. It's Jimmy B. It's
That's named after my dad.
115 proof. Yeah, it's pretty fantastic.
Well, I have 6 different Yellowstone samples, most of which came from Kevin Rose, and that Jimmy B's is actually the next one down. I've got a Westport whiskey and wine pick to start off with. I have to say, I like this quite a bit.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite picks of theirs for the whole year. It's great.
Yeah.
Chris, is it Zaborowski?
Zaborowski, yeah.
Yes. I always slaughter his last name. One of the finest tasters I've ever tasted with. I mean, he is just phenomenal. And so it doesn't surprise me that you like that particular pick.
Yeah. That label is a great label, and it's becoming very well respected. People really are excited to see that one. You know, that black label with the red, which is we have Stephen takes care of our barrel program, and I'll let him elaborate. But we have 2 different kinds of barrel programs. Yep. We have one where we send samples out, and then we have the black and red label, and that actually the people have to come into the distillery to pick the barrels out.
The black and red label, and I'm on record for saying this, it's not just because you guys are here tonight. These represent the best whiskey being made in Kentucky right now. They're as consistent as anything you'll find, and I've not found a bad one yet. And it's not for the lack of searching and tasting many bottles of it.
Well, you know, I think one of the things with the barrel picks in that particular program is, you know, like I said, we make the people come to the distillery. So, you know, they are vested. They're picking it with Stephen. So, you know, sometimes I drop in, but most of Stephen's always there. And, you know, because the barrel picks are fantastic if people are not just picking a barrel to have a barrel. You know, they're actually vested in that barrel, and it makes a big difference.
So I want to start off with a question. Well, first question is, how would you guys prefer that I differentiate between the two of you when I want to ask a question?
Steve and Stephen.
All right.
And I'm Stephen.
Yeah.
And he's Steve.
All right. Well, I'm going to start with a question for Stephen, because I don't know how many times you get asked questions first. So you're an executive bourbon steward, and you're the brand ambassador there. And what I have seen of you, you've got a fair amount of showmanship, also with how you do that. I want to know about, how did you get started in that, and where did your entertainment flair come from?
My father, chip off the old block, you know. He was always quite charismatic, and he owned some whiskey bars in downtown Louisville, so I cut my teeth early. And then I got a chance to go up against presidents of several corporations and presentations and getting them to purchase products and working with the coffee industry and the tea industry. And so, long story short, bringing the charismatic Stephen Fante to the room helped sell a lot of shit.
Yeah.
So I just brought it into the bourbon industry, which is basically just learning the trade from Steve, understanding the history of his family, bringing the characters that he has explained to me in his family to life, and then enjoying great bourbon. And I've always done that. So, and then the tastings, it's always a tasting. So I've been tasting things from tea as a tea sommelier for John Connie Coffee Company, and then on to Golden Cup certification with World Cup International. So I've tasted coffees, cupped coffees. We, brought those things to the person's palate and, kind of synced it into what they preferred. And so that was something I've been doing for decades. And now it's bourbon. It's another liquid beverage. Better.
Just to elaborate on what Stephen was talking about with coffee, because his brother Leo owns a coffee shop here in Louisville. It's the best coffee shop in Louisville, I think. But when I was talking with Leo, there's so many similarities in in coffee, in the way they're tasting coffees, and the roasting and the cupping and then tasting. It's very similar in ways to the way we taste bourbon, and the notes they're picking up and things. So, and to educate the palate on coffee. So it was great. And so Stephen's had a lot of experience with that. So
I want to ask you to you, Steve. Obviously, everybody knows your name. You got a very, not an important family tree in bourbon necessarily, but really an important family tree in America, because it's, let's go back and all the joy and the good times, bad times, cussing, fighting, laughing, everything else that's been, brought about with somebody that shared that name. Do you mind at all talking about your family history?
No, that's pretty much what I do now. But it's really important. Growing up, our side of the family had kind of been forgotten out of the bourbon industry, because the last of Joe Beans, who was Uncle Joe, my grandfather's cousins, all of them had been retiring. And so our side had just kind of been forgotten about. And so whenever anyone would ask about, are you related to the Beans? They were, of course, talking about our cousins down the road with the small distillery there in Claremont. But they, I'd have to say, it's complicated. Actually, for a lot of times, they just said, no, we're different group. And then my dad always said that, but we are all related. It's just, you start to get separated out by generations and less about your cousins and your parents knew about their cousins. So, but we come, the Beans are divided into three different groups at the grandsons of Jacob Bean. So Jacob came to Kentucky in 1792, had three grandsons all in the business. And then so that was three different lines in the Beans. And the first one was Jack Bean with Early Times. A lot of people don't realize Early Times goes back to the Beans as well. But, Jack started Early Times, very successful. Fortunately, died young, had one son who died the year after he did. And that kind of ended that side of the family. Then David was the middle son. That was Jim Bean's father. Everybody knows that story. And our ancestor was Joseph, and he was kind of an obscure person. We don't know much about him. I have heard him referred to as a master distiller a couple times in conversations I've read in books. And we recently found where he bought his father, so it had been Jacob Beam's sons, still. So we actually have the evidence, that was passed on to him. But he had Minor Case, my great grandfather, and then Joel Beam. And I always say that Minor Case had a distillery before Prohibition, but Joe, his brother, Minor, died right after Prohibition ended. But Joe and his 7 sons, and my grandfather was kind of like one of those sons, went around after Prohibition, helping all the other distilleries. So that's where a lot of that the knowledge, the institutional knowledge, came from after Prohibition. It was from that family and ours. And they didn't own distilleries. They were like nomads and went out and wandering around, opening up distilleries. It was kind of told like Joe would go and help open the distillery and leave one of his sons and then go on to the next. And I'm talking about everything from Mickner's up in Pennsylvania, Spitzel-Weller, Four Roses. When Maker's Mark opened up, that was Elmo Beam that had been there. So a lot of heritage and a lot of influence in the industry that had just really been forgotten about. So it's really important for me to kind of bring that out in part of my talking and education about that side of the family.
How many different distilleries have been directly impacted by a beam? You ever sit down and count?
Yeah. Well, there's at least over 65, probably closer to 70 brands that have been associated with it. And all the major distilleries, I used to be able to say, when the original, 6 or 7 distilleries were there on the Bourbon Trail, everything, but Wild Turkey had an association with the beam at one time or another. And so, yeah, they're very influential in getting them all back. My dad used to say that my grandfather, after Prohibition, because my grandfather went to Canada and worked up in Canada through Prohibition. He didn't ever stop distilling. And when he came back, my dad said there was a different architect or some engineer or someone working on all the distilleries after Prohibition at their dining room table every single night, picking my grandfather's brain on, how to design these distilleries.
Yeah.
So in the time that they spent, which I thought that was a really cool story, how they'd helped a lot of distilleries after Prohibition, but at no time apparently they wanted to focus on Minor Case and bringing that. It was just
no. Well, the Minor Case never had a brand named after him. So when we brought out a brand, that was the first person I wanted to honor. Was Minor Case, but his brand back in the 1800s was actually Old Trump. So that can be pretty polarizing right now. I think is, but that was his brand. It was Old Trump, and my grandfather had a dog named Old Trump. So
One of the other cool stories that I read about was that the Family Yeast Jug, which I thought one was really interesting, that nothing had ever happened to it. But then it was, if you elaborate on it, it was sitting for decades, just sitting out on a shelf. Is that true?
Yeah. So my Uncle Toddy had it. And Booker No had it for some reason. I don't know. Don't even understand that. But Booker No had it and gave it to my grandfather. Gave it to Toddy. So somehow it went from my grandfather to Booker, but it came back to Toddy. And he had it and, just kept it in as a conversation piece, in his family room. And then when he passed away, Toddy, that is, Toddy of Toddy's Liquors. Right. They're in Bardstown. So everybody knows Toddy. Anybody who's been to Bardstown knows Toddy's Liquors. Of course, it's been out of the family for a while. But Toddy, and so he had it in, and it may have even been at the liquor store. I don't know. But he when he got older, and he donated to the Oscar Getz Whiskey Museum in Bardstown. And he did a lot of work there. Was a great volunteer and whiskey advocate, back from the beginning of that. And so it sat on the shelf. And we just thank goodness that nobody decided to bleach it out or something.
Mm-hmm.
For one thing, it was kind of hard to get it open. And of course we took it over to Firm Solutions, Dr. Heist over Wilderness Trail, other business Firm Solutions, and they were able to get it open first of all, and then scrape it, and then got the DNA, and then from the DNA they put it in some kind of bacteria or something, and then grew it. And I have no idea; it's way above my pay grade. But we ended up with the yeast strain that was in the jug, that minor case use. So that was really, really fortunate that we were able to do that. I had read somewhere where they had sprouted this date palm from the pyramids in Egypt. They found this, date palm seed, and they planted it and it grew. And so I was like, well, hell, if they can grow a date palm, from 2,000 years ago, maybe we can find some yeast from, 100 years ago, 50 years ago.
So is that the yeast that you use in everything you distill, or do you use others?
We use it. We use it in our rye-based bourbons.
Okay.
We do a wheated bourbon as well, and we use a different yeast that was more suitable. Was used in some older distilleries and things that are a little bit more suitable to a wheated bourbon.
Mm-hmm. And did you say you used it in the minor case as well?
Minor case is actually Indiana rye.
Oh, okay.
So we had such limited production that we didn't really we couldn't give up production for rye. So we make all bourbon, and they make great rye, and so it's an Indiana rye, but it's not their standard mash bills. Generally it's 75-95% rye. This one's 51% rye, 45% corn, and 4% malt. So it starts off a little bit less spicy, and then you add that great sherry cask,
Right.
and it just really softens it and gives it those fruit notes.
Yeah.
So these black and red label Yellowstones, that's out of that yeast then, correct?
Those are barrels that we use from Luxco.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and Stephen, you want to elaborate on the barrel program if you want? That's
Yes, sure.
like the proof wise, how we do it and things.
Can you hear me okay? I'm having audio issues.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Good. Then I'll get rid of these. So when a person comes to the distillery for a hand-picked collection, they're going to get a chance to, what I say, learn a little bit about things they might not thought about in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And that is proof, and just how much and how significantly proof influences the flavor characteristics of a barrel of bourbon as much as a master distiller or a barrel house manager. So they're going to taste through some barrels, depending on how many that they're actually there to purchase. They're going to taste through all the barrels at 102. They're going to taste through all the barrels at 109, and they're going to taste through all the barrels at 115. Those are significant changes in proof levels.
Mm-hmm.
3 points higher in proof levels, and it's a big change. When you go from 102 to 109, that's a huge change. And every time you turn the volume up, you turn the flavor characteristics up. Sometimes those flavor characteristics get better, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes you pull out bad characteristics that you don't particularly like in a barrel. And so what you like at 102, we taste through all the 102s first. Of course, we don't want to blow your palate. So you're going to taste through the lowest proofed whiskey first, and then you're going to step up to the 109s, and then you're going to step up again to the 115s. The one barrel that you chose for wonderful characteristics with great body, great flavor, great finish at 102 is probably not going to be the barrel that you choose at 109. It's very seldom that you pick all three barrels or all three proofs on one barrel. Only 3 times as it happened since I've been doing it that I picked a barrel at all 3 proofs. So when they come through and they taste at 102, They pick their choice. We do this silently. We do not talk about our picks. We keep it quiet until the end of the pick. And then I poll them. Okay, what did you like at 102? What did you like at 102? What did you like at 102? We move up to 109. What did you like at 109? What did you like at 1? And I put stars next to it. And at the very end of it, I show them the stars and how they aligned. And if all the stars align at a particular barrel at 109, they've picked their barrel. If all the stars align at 115, they've picked their barrel. If it's all at 102, then they've chosen their barrel. Sometimes they decide to pick all three. One at 102, one at 109, and one at 115. If they've pre-selected a choice of 3 barrels for their tasting, they can have all 3 barrels, sell them as a 3-pack, and show the customers just how much proof influences the flavor characteristics of a barrel as much as the master distiller or the barrel house manager. So the hand-picked collection goes more in depth on proof than any other program I've ever visited, and it will make you think every time you pick a barrel from another distillery, is that barrel as good as it could be? Could it have been better at a different proof?
And it's amazing because people will come in with this thought in their head, and we want a 115,
Cast strength.
Right. That's what everybody wants now, is high proof stuff. And, they are blown away when they see that something is, maybe the 102 or the 109 works out much better there, flavor wise. So, and we actually do proof them down for tasting. And they're usually, we do them maybe a week or so in advance. So they're sitting in the bottle for a while. But we don't just, Stephen doesn't just have a droppers of water there and say, okay, this is 115. Now add a few drops, and that's probably right around 109 or whatever.
It'll be just like it is in your store. No, it won't.
Earlier you'd mentioned Luxco, and I was curious. You've got I assume a really good relationship with them, but how important or how easy was it to get that Yellowstone label back under your family?
Right. Well, when I opened the distillery, that was one of the things that I wanted to do, was to bring back one of the old brands. And Yellowstone was very important in my life growing up, because that touched both sides of my family. My mom's family, it was very significant in her family growing up, and then it was just as significant in my father's. So, and it always was in our house. But so I started working, emailing Don Lux over at Luxco, and it went on for a couple of years. We were both busy, and just I'd email him and wouldn't hear anything for a couple months, and then I'd send him some, so. But eventually we worked it out. Excuse me. Been talking a lot lately, but so that was just part of the deal. They came over. They really liked what we were doing at the distillery. Saw that we were the real deal. We not just all talk, and we're interested in getting involved with this. And of course, they had gotten the label. And the distillery was sold out of the Dant family in 1944, and the Thompson family picked it up at Glenmore, and Glenmore had it from 1944 to 1992 or 3, right in there, and then they sold to United Distillers, and shortly after they sold to United Distillers merged with Guinness Beer and became Diageo. And, the Brits were like, what is this bourbon stuff? We don't want anything to do with it. They closed the distillery down and sold off all the brands. So that's when Luxco got Yellowstone, I think David Nicholson, all the old United brands, and Heaven Hill got some too at that time. But and so then David president of Lux Coast, said they didn't know what they had. They just bottled whatever and put it on, and it became a bottom shelf. So, when in 2015, when we partnered, is when I formulated what we have now at the Yellowstone Select at 93, which is a blend of 4 and 7 year old. And so I chose those years because the 4's a little bit younger. You get a little bit of the green notes, very light notes from the barrel. So the classic caramels and vanillas that you get in a traditional Kentucky bourbon. And then the 7 is adds to the depth and the finish and adds more character in there. So, and then 93 was the proof that particular blend shone best at least up until 100. I didn't really go over 100, but because they had the sales team came back and we introduced it at 93. Sales team came back, said it's got to be higher proof. We needed at least 100. So I said, okay, well, I'll go back and look at it. And so I went back and we did everything from like 93 to just a little bit over 100 proof. And hey, Louis. But and then and 93 is where it worked. So that was the first time I said to them that no, it's going to be 93 because that's where it works at. And you can pour a bottle of Yellowstone Select at 93 and drink it neat, and it's perfect proof of that. And so how much of the Select is, if that's a proprietary thing, I will say as more of our barrels come of age, it's a higher percentage as year over year. And we'll be having our own distillate come out in the first of the year in our own, that will be 100% limestone.
Fantastic.
So are there any other old labels you want to bring back?
I think concentrating on Yellowstone's good enough for right now.
Okay.
We've always taken the opinion that we didn't want to be spread too thin. We wanted to be, focused on Yellowstone. We do the bourbon, minor case rye, and then we just added a gin. But we just wanted to kind of focus on those. And there's not a lot of brand extensions and things. We're just trying to, do a great bourbon.
Can you talk a little about the experimental collections? Because these are fantastic little gems. Yeah. This one I've got here is 100% malted rye. I've got some others that I couldn't put my hands on at the moment, but really, really good stuff.
Yeah. So, I kind of have ADD. So while with the Yellowstone Select and, in our distillates, we strive to make that the same, all the time. Mm-hmm. And I find that really boring. I mean, it's not, because you have to work really to get it to that, be very close to the same. But I like new and different and, squirrel shiny thing over here. So even attest to that. And so those barrels, the smaller barrels give me, quicker satisfaction and the ability to do different grain bills that I might find interesting or want to try, and not commit a lot of resources to it, but at the same time start to see how it's going to taste. And just so people know, that comes out of a 15-gallon barrel. We tried 25s and 15s and didn't particularly care for the 25s. The 15s in our little, what Stephen will tell you is the cutest little barrel house in all of Kentucky, that we got a little shipping container that we've put ricks in, opened on both ends, so it's always ambient and gets a lot of airflow. And those 15-gallon barrels just do really well in there. And so it gets a quick turnaround, and I get to play. Yeah. And like I said, and not commit tremendous amount of resources to it.
Yeah, one of the highlights of the tour is tasting something direct from one of those barrels.
Yeah. And we had a chocolate malt bourbon that I think is probably the best thing we've made out of that distillery yet. And I really didn't even, I was out of town or something. Stephen picked the barrel. They brought it into the gift shop, and they had also, I got the last bottle they had. I tasted it. I was like, damn, that's good. They said, well, we got one bottle left. I was like, all right.
You need to post that on Facebook, Stephen, so we can get down there and grab a bottle before they go.
I try to throw it out there. On my Bourbon Scout 1872, I clue in those that follow me, all 6 of them.
So, yeah. Stephen, is there a whiskey that you want to make there?
The Stephen Fante whiskey? Sure.
Yeah. And what would that be?
I don't know. I've thought I was a weeded guy when I came to work for him. And then he says, oh, you're a weeded guy. Try this. What is it? 100% malted rye. Oh, that's good. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, whatever he makes is good. I'll put my name on any of it.
I will say the ones we've done with different malts, like the chocolate malt and the caramel malts.
The weeded caramel malt.
Yeah. And then we've done, malted red wheat, regular red wheat, and with, caramel malt, some chocolate malts. Some of those have been in the experimentals have been really, really fantastic.
36 months.
And unique.
36 months weeded bourbon on the shelf right now at the distillery. 36 months in a quarter cask.
Yeah.
It is extraordinary. Wow. The color, the flavor characteristics for a weeded bourbon, it has such a full-bodied experience. It's
that whole small barrel collection started with that weeded bourbon recipe. A cousin of mine brought down Mike Dant, who was the last in our family to own Yellowstone. They brought down a little notepad that he had, like a little flip notepad on the desk. It had, a supplier's name on it. It's kind of funny because Bill Samuels, when he came through, he said, oh, I remember, that supplier, but anyway. And so he had that, and he had written on there this mash bill, and it was 28% wheat, 28% wheat, 12% malt, and 60% corn. And then he had it circled. And I think it said as of on it too. And I thought, this seems significant. I want to try that that mash bill. So, but I didn't want to make a lot of it. So we made some and put them in the smaller barrels, and it turned out really nice. And actually, that was one of the things that we went from the small barrels, putting it into 53. So we do have a weeded that is aging. But it'd be a few more years before that's out. And but that heavy wheat, I don't know of anybody else. There might be some other craft guys, but I don't know of any major distillery that's doing 28% wheat.
I want to apologize for being late. I wasn't even going to pop in because I'm going to tell you the screen looks better with you guys taking up more of it than with me on here. I was only sneaking in because when you were talking about your little barrel aging house, I'm like, I know there's some pictures in here. So I'm like, I had to put them up, and that's actually set up really nice where you get to use both sides of it. I've seen a lot of people who waste kind of the space in there. You guys use a pretty nice usage of the space on that.
We have a tiny distillery, and we have grown to utilize every square inch of our distillery because it's only about, it's probably about 2,500 square feet, 2,600 square feet.
Okay.
Not big.
Okay.
It's a 4,500 square foot building. Half of it is geared toward the front end tours and tastings and that. Half of it's the distillery. We did add a boiler room, so we add on another couple hundred feet for that. So we pack things in. We learn, efficient use of space.
I was gonna say, and just on a couple of them, I'm gonna go down some pictures because I know it looked like I think Ben went here and he took a couple pictures of some stills. Do you mind if we talk about a couple of the ones I bring up?
Not at all. And we did do a major renovation, so some of those stills may not be there anymore.
Oh well, then our bad.
No, but we
This was a month ago.
No, he's been down recently. So that's our latest edition. That's a 1,000-gallon Vendome, and we use that as our stripping still.
Nice.
And so we went from 600-gallon fermenters, 550-gallon fermenters, square tote fermenters, and 600-gallon fermenters. Then we went to those to 1,000-gallon fermenters, and a still that's 1,000 gallons. So those are 1,000-gallon fermenters.
Nice big upgrades. And let's see here. I know he's got two more hidden on here. Oh wait. And
Steve, you want to talk about that one? I'm gonna take a sip.
Really? Really? From Italy?
Yeah.
It's got Corinthian leather. No, you know what I like to say? I like to say what happens when you got a master distiller over your distillery that has a master's degree in landscape architecture, horticulture. Is he going to want to play with his plants? Well, of course he is. So he came up with Bowling and Birch gin. 19 different botanicals in Bowling and Birch gin. That's more botanicals than Colonel Holland Sanders had spices in his chicken recipe. Leave it to the Colonel. Colonel Beam. That's why we had to get the 85-gallon Farilli, or it's close to it. There's a 35-gallon hybrid in the hallway as a fountain now. And that's the one we retired because the national demand for Bowling and Birch gin was so high, we could not keep up with that national demand.
Isn't it. Sorry, that might not have been it.
There's the old Trump sign there. That was in minor case beam right above him, and that was his brand.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought that was still in there, and I got one left in here, so I'm just making sure I go over stuff that.
So that's the Trident still, and that is we use that as was our stripping still early on, 600 gallons, and now we use it as our finish still.
Okay.
And,
do you guys name your stills?
Well, that one's name was Cora.
Okay.
After my grandmother's sister, and we haven't named the new one yet. So I think the distillers call her something, but I haven't officially named anything yet.
That's
fair. Cora, yeah. So Cora was Mike Dance of Yellowstone's wife.
Oh, nice image. And speaking of Yellowstone, you guys do a lot of charity work with that, and I think Stephen, you were out doing some stuff earlier today with that, weren't you?
That was this afternoon with the NBA to Louisville. Both of us were out there. He got the bad end of it. The brunt end of it was the rain. I left before it started raining.
Yeah, Stephen had to go off for a doctor's appointment, left me there in the rain.
Well, I just want to say we appreciate you stopping in this evening, just because we know you have a long day and this is later on in the evening. So thanks for stopping in with us. So I'm going to hop back out for a little bit. Because like I said, you guys look better when it's big screen on you. I just wanted this. What, Mike? You look like you were going to
Nope,
yell at me.
I'm not going to say anything.
Nope, go ahead. Say something.
Nope.
Well, I'm at least going to go in the background for a little bit. So
thanks for the pictures.
Well, hold on here. There's a couple
too
other.
technical for me. I can't get that stuff to happen. I don't know how you're magically doing that.
Well, I got one of you in the tasting room.
Oh, good Lord.
I was going to say, and it looks like there's some healthy pours across the table. So I think I want to make my way there at some point.
Yeah. That's the Church of Stephen.
Look at the stained glass back there. It is absolutely the
They
church.
stole that from the Vatican.
Is there a Sunday service, or does this happen on a different day? Because I can schedule.
There's three. There's three on Sunday.
And then I got, I think a barrel here as well.
Malted wheat.
Yeah.
And that would be the 15-gallon quarter cask. And like I said, I really, really like that. You're not going to get the depth out of a 15-gallon quarter cask, in even 36 months that you're going to get out of a full cask, equivalent amount of time or longer. But it really gives you a sense of where you're headed with that whiskey. And you get those front of the mouth notes that you get from a younger whiskey. You don't get those real intense, the finish, and those diesel oils that stick to the tongue and everything that comes with time. But you do get those initial lighter notes from that barrel. And so you can kind of get an idea of where it's going.
So do you have much in historical records as far as mash bills and other things that were used by the family in the past, or is a lot of that gone?
No, I have quite a few mash bills. A lot of it's gone, but quite a few mash bills. And then I have notes from Joel Bean, Miner's younger brother. So Joel trained under Miner, so everything he knew, came from Miner. It came from his father. That was just the way it was done back then. And then I have some from my uncle Birch Bean, who was a master distiller as well. The only other master distiller in the family besides Guy, it was his oldest son Birch, and he is a master distiller as well.
So are there any of those old recipes though that have really, well, one, are any of those bottles exist, but are any of there's old recipes that intrigue you enough that you said you want to focus on Yellowstone, but is there anything that's particularly of interest?
Well, like I said, we did do that 28% wheat, which was what piqued my interest because it was so unique. So we started out in quarter cask. It's about 3 years into 53-gallon now, and we're releasing all of our whiskey that we make at 6 years. And so that in this first quarter, we'll have the 6 year out. And, we're pot stills, and I think pot stills need a little bit more time in the barrel. You get a little bit more of the fusel oils and different things that come over. Of course, that depends on your cuts as well. But for us, 4 was a little bit too young. So we waited until 6 years. And having a partner such as Luxco allowed us to take that time to do that. We didn't have to get that in the barrel and get it out there.
So do you, with Yellowstone, do you guys maintain the control of that label?
The Limestone Branch has control of that label, and I'm in charge of the flavor profile and the limited editions and everything for that.
And so, and of course, Tim brought this up down here, which I was going to ask. So are you, when you mentioned, you're waiting for 6 years, but are you going to try to do everything as bottled and bond, or some bottled and bond, some not?
Eventually we'll get to bottled and bond. And we had kind of planned on this first being bottled and bond, but we didn't have enough from a particular season. So we've had to blend from different, because we started out, we only made a few barrels a week in the very beginning, and then up to a barrel a day. And so we're having to go, over a longer time period than what bottled and bond allows. So, but it'll be 100 proof, basically a bottled and bond, but we don't meet that single season. Okay.
So are you guys,
as our stocks age and we get more significant quantities, then we'll be doing, our bottled and bond.
What you say you're doing a barrel a day? What's your capacity? Are you guys even close to being what your capacity for production would be?
So we used to do a barrel a day, and then we had that major expansion this spring when we got that 1,000-gallon Vendome still. And now our capacity is 10 barrels a day.
Okay.
And we're doing about 7. So still insignificant when you talk about the larger distilleries. But for us, that's a huge increase.
Yeah. And what's your storage looking like?
We store everything at Luxco, or Lux
Okay.
Row.
Luxco, yeah.
At Lux Row. So all of our barrels are over at Lux Row. All of our full-size barrels are over there. And we will, I think the next project we do will be, well, Steve's getting that tasting room, I think, but for his barrels. But we're planning on doing a smaller barrel house at the distillery, mainly for shipping and receiving, storing barrels as we, fill them, store them to ship, receiving single barrels back in, and something to give that barrel experience to our guests there.
Mm-hmm.
But Lux Row has all those barrel houses and has capacity to build many more. So it just makes sense not to duplicate things, and that they're able to go over there. And I can go over there. Stephen can go over there whenever we want to and visit our barrels. And babysit them or taste them.
Yeah, is it true your favorite rocking chair spot was replaced with the distillery expansion?
No, there was a rocking chair there that my dad always liked. It's a Kentucky UK rocking chair, and it was my brother's rocking chair. Actually, his employees out at Barano's in Oklahoma had given it to him on Christmas, and he brought it down to the distillery. My dad, that was his favorite spot. So, but anyway, my brother decided he wanted his chair back. so he took his chair back, and then Stephen was gracious enough. He was like, no, we got to have a rocking chair there. So he went out and got a rocking chair, had it logoed up, and put it back. Now was a UK rocking chair. Now it's a Yellowstone rocking chair.
Well, that's better.
Unfortunately, Stephen didn't sit in it before he bought it. And it's a little bit more narrow. And if I get much bigger, I'm not going to be able to get in it.
So
little tight.
You mentioned the limited edition a second ago. So this is the 2020 version of that.
Okay.
Which was finished in Armagnac casks, and it was
Correct.
Fantastic. And you've just come out with the 2021.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, 2021. It was finished in Amarone cask.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I'm not gonna lie, I had to do a little bit of research because I get a list from our cooperage, used cooperage people who broker these barrels of what barrels that are available and what I can use to pick. And the Amarone was on there, and I'm not gonna lie, I knew it was an Italian red wine, but I didn't know much more about it than that. So I started doing some research about it and saw, it's a partially dehydrated grape that is then fermented. So it's really intense flavors that come through that wine, and then it's aged in barrels. But and then I was reading the flavor characteristics of the Amarone, and I thought that they would be very nice complement to bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I always try to do is when I do these barrel finishes, I don't want it to be all about the finish.
Right.
I just want to, give the bourbon some rounding and some little flavor characteristics that when people taste it, they're like, what is that taste? And so I try to use a very light hand when I do the barrel finishes. And the Amarones turned out really, really nice.
Yes.
And we tasted, I was just in Colorado Friday night, and we did a tasting with the 5280 whiskey group there, and they loved it. So that was the first official tasting that I had done with it. So it was good to get it out and have people affirm that they like it. And they didn't throw rocks at me, so I was all right.
No, those are good guys. I don't think they do that anyway. How far in advance do you plan what the next release is going to be? Like, have you started brainstorming on 2022, or is that too far away?
2022 is in the bag, and I'm thinking about 2023 now.
Yeah. Any hints or clues on what we'll see next year?
It's another wine. How about that? but it's unique. I don't think I don't know of another bourbon that's been finished in it, and I really had reservations about it because just of the wine, and so it's not Mad Dog 2020, but but I had reservations about the wine, but it's really turning out nice. And we pulled the first samples about a month ago, and I'm doing some more samples here soon because I want to see. But we were just doing one barrel as a test.
Yeah,
to kind of see, okay, we can go too much, So
yeah,
I want to push it all the way, and then say, okay, this is where we need to narrow in at when we start.
Yeah.
Well, the 2020 was one of my favorites, favorite whiskeys from last year, and I think Fred Minnick had on some finished whiskey list that he had, and 2021 I've had a chance to taste it, and it's certainly on par with that. So you guys are doing a really good job with it.
Yeah, Fred, he had his finished whiskey list, and it rated really high on his finished whiskey list. But one of his negatives, which I took as a positive, was that he didn't know what it was finished in.
Exactly. I thought the same thing.
That's what I was shooting for, Fred.
Yeah, he said I couldn't tell where the Armagnac went away and the bourbon started.
Perfect.
There you go.
That's
what you did a good job.
Because I don't want you to know. I don't want it to be about the Armagnac. It's about the bourbon.
Yeah.
So he looked at it as a negative when he was rating those, but I took that as, I did my job right.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah. So I'm asking you a question. Can you talk a little bit about your donations to the national parks and how the brand got started with that?
I'll talk a little bit about how the brand got started. Stephen, you can talk about the national park thing if you want. But so Bernard Dant, so J.W. Dant's son, Bernard, had a distillery, and he was working with Taylor & Williams, a distributor in Louisville. Mm-hmm. And they had a salesman who was out west. And he actually came back and, he said, everybody's so excited about this new national park. We need to brand a bourbon Yellowstone. If we brand a bourbon Yellowstone, I can sell a lot of it. And his name was Charles Townsend. And so they branded one of their bourbons Yellowstone. It was just one of their collection. But it quickly became their number one selling bourbon. And so that was back in 1872, the same year the park was founded. And so, so next year's our 150th anniversary. Yellowstone has been continuously on the shelf for 150 years. And there's not a lot of bourbons that can say that. We've had, 3 different brand owners over the years, and 4 of you with me. And I just feel like I'm the steward for the brand at this moment in time. And Stephen, you want to talk about our parks program that we do with the NPCA?
There's a lot of participation that Steve does behind the scene, including stripping the barbed wire out for the pronghorn sheep migration. That's something that you might not have heard of.
Pronghorn sheep migrating.
You know it. Got to keep them rolling. And he visits the park and gets a chance to get out there and understand, what the needs are. But $1 for every bottle of Yellowstone Select that you purchase goes back to the National Parks Conservancy. The National Parks Conservancy is not a government entity. It's a privately held entity and has been around since almost 1872 and has been a steward of all national parks ever since. So you're giving back not to just Yellowstone National Park, but you're giving back to all national parks. Mm-hmm. Every time you take a sip of Yellowstone Select, you're giving back to parks. If you're going to drink for a cause.
Yeah, but the NPCA, National Parks Conservation Association, is a great group. We're honored to be associated with them, and they do great work. And they do everything from light intrusion into national parks and encroachment and lobbying for different things. It's a big organization, an important organization, and they're having their 150th anniversary next year as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, I got a question for you because I know I don't want to keep you guys much past the hour because I know you've been straining your voice a lot and you're about to do it a lot more. And Stephen may or may not be under the weather depending on what Dr. Yellowstone says. But so you guys are you're 10 years into this. Do you wish that you had done anything different or if you could go back now and whisper something to 10 years ago, Steve, what would you say?
I would say do small barrels. Because when I got into it, everybody's like, you do not want to do small barrels. You don't do that. You do the 53. So we did 53s and waited, and a lot of people who did small barrels were able to take that and just get a lot better cash flow in the beginning. So we struggled with cash flow in the beginning because of that. And I tried to remain pure, but then, like I said, then kind of stumbling on these 15-gallon barrels, they really, people love them. And they're very, it's a good thing. So I'm not an advocate necessarily for small barrels, but I think in the right environment, a small barrel can produce a decent whiskey. I still think 53s make the best, especially over time. But those 15s in a pinch, like that in a small time frame, 3 years or so, can make some really good whiskey.
So if someone's interested in doing a single barrel with Limestone Branch, whether it's the red and black label or the experimental collection, what do they have to do and what's that process look like?
I'll let Stephen talk about that. He's our barrel guy.
So on the 53-gallon barrels, if you wanted it hand-picked, you would contact your state manager with Luxco Corporation from whatever state that you were in. Your distributor would obviously be able to tune you into that. We can tune you into that. If you need help finding who it is that you need to speak with, you can reach out to the distillery. They'll put you in touch with me, and I'll put you in touch with the Luxco state manager to be put on a list to come to Kentucky and do a hand-picked selection of a Yellowstone 53-gallon barrel and at a proof that you choose it best at. And then there's another program, and there's a certain allotment of barrels that go to each state. And in that program, it's a 93 select program. In fact, Kevin Rose, you poured from that bottle yourself. It had a label on the bottom of it.
I noticed that too. Yeah.
This is a Westport pick.
Okay.
Yeah. When a bottle that I love starts getting low, I start nursing it.
Understand.
This was picked September 9th, 2019. So yes.
Yeah, and that's where our barrel program started. We started with those, where we'd send out barrels for them to pick themselves at the liquor store. And that was our first barrel program. And then we added that black label where they come actually down to the distillery.
And then on the 15-gallon barrels, there's only 40 being produced a year. So there's only about 10 barrels available to anyone. And I'm pretty much being very selective as to who it is that comes and is inquisitive about buying that specific barrel. If it's a bourbon group and there's bourbon geeks that really like, then I'm more inclined to let one of them slip out the door for one of those guys. And that would be probably through the gift shop where they would come down and they taste through it and then pick their barrel and then come back and pick it up once it's bottled at the distillery itself.
So Mike and I need to get her name on the list. Is that what you're saying?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's like only 10 of them for the whole year next year.
Yeah,
the rest of them, there's 40 being made, but 30 of them will go through our gift shop in a matter of minutes. As you can see, they don't last when we put them on the shelf, and 3 barrels a month is nothing for us to go through in the gift shop at about 120 to 140 bottles.
And
375s.
I had to rein Stephen in. He was selling all the barrels. I go, where'd all the barrels go? Stephen sell them.
That's a good problem to have.
He sell. You gotta watch him because someone ever's ever around. You know.
He won't even leave his truck on the lot on the weekends anymore.
That's that good salesmanship there. Well, one thing we do on the show, we like to go through and have a blend at the end of the night of everything that we've sampled. And so I know Kevin's working on one there. I've got one that's three Yellowstone single barrel picks, minor case, Yellowstone, standard Yellowstone release, and then a total wine in there. So I got 7 of them in here. And I got to tell you, this is a damn nice blend.
I've got 5 of the red and black picks. I've got one of the 93 proof Yellowstones in the gold label. I have a 100% malted rye, and then I've got the 2020 limited edition. So
both interesting mixes of things. So the minor case, the finished one on and yours, Mike, and then Kevin with the 2020.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit in this glass as I've created this blend. So I'll sleep well tonight.
Well, my blend is all minor case because that's what I've been drinking tonight.
And then tonight's my first night having minor case, and I really like that. That's
yeah.
I could see, especially if you had somebody who was someone who was not a fan of rye, number one, or someone who tends to turn their nose up at anything from MGP. I mean, they make fine whiskey. There's nothing wrong with it. But when people can do something with what they have, that's even more special, because that's just, you're taking a solid product and you're making it fantastic. And and you guys definitely did that. That's I could go through a lot of bottles of minor case.
Yeah, minor case is great. We just, when we have people try it, when they actually get it into their lips, most people are just blown away by it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
And you're right about MGP, and of course they're our parent company now,
Right.
because they bought Luxco, and they do make great whiskey. And
They do.
And it just goes to show you, I mean, how many craft distilleries have won so many awards. People kind of forget about that. It's kind of the funny thing about the source whiskey. People, although not as much now as they used to, but people give people a hard time about source whiskey or this or that, until they find one they like, and then all of a sudden they kind of forget about that it was
right, yeah. Hey, good whiskey is good whiskey.
Yeah. But MGP makes great whiskey. They make a lot of whiskey, so
yes, they do.
Yeah, they should have some very good whiskey. Yeah.
I'm sold on that minor case. That's really good. I don't see it that often in my area.
Yeah, it's one that you have to look a little bit harder to get, but it is readily available. And like I said, it's my go-to when it's hot, because it's at 90 proof, a little bit lighter whiskey. Those fruit notes come through. Really nice just to sip on and enjoy neat, or it makes a fantastic old Manhattan as well, because the sherry works really well with the vermouth.
Or you could crank up the AC and drink one of these 115 proof single barrels.
There you go. Yeah, and this is just a personal preference, and everybody has their personal preferences. But for me, those richer whiskeys is a little bit night when it seems like it's a little bit cooler, or sitting around at night and having a cigar or something is nice. But just when it's hot and you just want something, I don't think you can beat minor case.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when I was drinking. I was like, this would be really good with a cigar. Which is it's one of, I'll say, my final question. Do you have, either you guys cigar guys, and do you have a go-to or recommendations for your whiskeys with cigar?
Well, Stephen is definitely the cigar guy. I am an occasional cigar person. But Stephen, he has one in his mouth all the time. Surprised he's not smoking one now. And we
I like to
just
go opposites of whatever it is I'm drinking. If I'm drinking something light like Minor Case, I'm going to go with a spicier cigar, a Rocky Patel, something with a little bit more spice to it. If it's a heavier 115 proof single barrel and it's a little bit spicy in its own, then I'm going to go with a lighter Fuente or Arturo Fuente, probably a short. Don't have much time to smoke one typically. It's just an enjoyable 20 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go with the shorts more often than not. Back in the days when I had my intercoastal trawler, I'd put a Presidente in my mouth and I'd be out to 18 Mile Island and be halfway through it. By the time I pulled back in the channel, it'd be just about right.
But I do enjoy a good cigar, but just I have to be. It just has to be the right time.
Yeah.
So
I understand that. All right. Well, we're a little over an hour. I do want to say I appreciate your guys' time tonight.
Yes.
You guys have busy schedules, and it's going to be getting even busier. But I really enjoy the whiskeys that I've had. And thank you, Kevin, for giving the single barrel picks. This is really good. Kevin has been saying actually for quite a while. He keeps saying that Limestone Branch is putting out the best consistent whiskey in Kentucky, and based on what I've had tonight, I honestly would agree with them. It's just this. Every one of these has been really good. I mean, the single barrel picks, they're all unique, but also there's still that note that goes along there, along through them that you can tell these all come from the same fabric. But yeah, very well done. I enjoy these whiskeys quite a bit.
Yeah, and if you're going to Kentucky, if you're making that trip and you're wanting to hit the Bourbon Trail, that's all well and good, but you need to make time to get over to Lebanon and go to Limestone Branch. The tour experience is great, especially if you get the opportunity for Stephen to lead your tour. Last time we were there, I guess I've been there probably 3 or 4 times. Last time I was there, Stephen did lead the tour, and it is a religious experience. That's the only way I can compare it. And the tour is fantastic. The tastings that you get to have are second to none. And then afterwards, there's a nice little bar there where they can make you some cocktails, and the patio is a wonderful place to just hang out. You'll probably see Louis patrolling the area, and you'll just have a great afternoon at Limestone Branch. So do not overlook it if you're coming to Kentucky.
Well, we love to have everybody come. We really do, and it's one of the things. And I talked to Stephen about this when we first opened up, was that I wanted people to come and just feel like they're at home, like their family, and I hear that feedback from people, Kevin, like you, all the time, and so I know that everybody's doing a great job, and we're lucky that the employees that we have love what they do, and that makes a huge difference, and I think that shows as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Not only in the visitor experience, but then that also comes through in the whiskey. Because I kind of think whiskey is kind of like your mama's cooking. I mean, if it's made with love and people caring about it, that's gonna come through in that as well.
Sure.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll let you guys go. Once again, I do appreciate you guys' time tonight. And
we have to say he can't go through a night. Where are you there? Without coming up and saying, what the hell's going on? So that's the case.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't make it through an event like this without him at sometime toward the end coming up and going, okay, time for me.
Let's go. It's me time. All right. Well, we'll let you get to them. And once again, we thank you guys for your time. And as always, we encourage people, go tour the distilleries, especially the smaller distilleries. Nothing against distributors as a general rule, but go buy directly from the distillery.
Yeah.
It's a better experience. And sometimes there's a little something extra that you won't get somewhere else. But it's support the I don't just want to say craft whiskey movement. Support people that give a damn about what they're making, and
Yeah.
it's very apparent you guys give a damn about what you're doing.
Yep.
We definitely appreciate that. So,
Thank
all right.
you. Thanks. For
thank you
having
guys,
me. Cheers.
and
Cheers.
cheers.
Have a good evening.
Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3.